Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrives at episode 592, where we go back to the well. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
That was clever, Keith.
That was clever.
Thanks.
Very clever.
The title was right in front of me, too. I mean, I think RTD slightly did that on purpose.
Yeah. How's everybody been in the last few weeks? We apologize. We meant to get this particular episode out last week when we had some technical difficulties between, two of us. The other one had his stuff good to go, but two of us had some technical difficulties, so we had to push it off for a week. So
in what universe do we live that Keith was the one that was prepared?
Hey, I'm always prepared. What are you talking about? I rarely have issues. It's just the kids getting down to sleep. That's why. That's my only problem.
That's true.
Which they're doing better at now. So, poof.
As they get older, it gets a little easier.
Yeah.
So this week we're going to be reviewing The Well and Lucky Day. So episodes 3 and 4. Well, let's kick it off with The Well.
Far in the future, on a tough, brutal planet, a devastated mining colony has only one survivor. To discover the truth, the Doctor and Belinda must face absolute terror.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yep, I would agree. Sean, go
It
ahead.
would have gotten even a bigger bump for me if I hadn't gotten spoiled on the big reveal.
Oh.
Yeah, like the New York Times or somebody had like a headline, like it in their headline.
That's unfortunate.
I got spoiled as well, and it was just maybe an hour or two before we sat down to watch it. But I don't even feel like knowing what I knew about that it was a sequel to a particular story, knowing that, I still went into it, and I must have kind of forgotten that, because when the reveal came back, that's when I kind of remembered, oh, yeah. So for me, I guess maybe I wasn't looking for it in the episode, so I didn't feel too spoiled on it, even though I knew.
See, and as much as I enjoyed the entire episode, and I thought it was phenomenal, I thought it was a really well done episode, I was just waiting for the reveal to come along to go, oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
All right, now we can really dive into some of the meat of what's going on.
Yeah.
And I suppose this is as good a time as any to kind of remind everyone that the official Traveling the Vortex policy is that once it has aired, it's fair game to talk about.
Right.
So we're sounding the spoiler horn here. If you haven't seen it, we'll tiptoe around it a little bit because we're just prone to do that. But in reality, we're going to talk about it.
We're not going to put it in our headlines or rebrand the podcast.
We're not going to do that.
I like to
tiptoe. We're not the New York Times, for Pete's sake.
I like to tiptoe around it early in the podcast, early in the discussion, because then people can kind of go, oh, wait a minute, they're going to get into spoiler territory, perhaps. So.
Right. Yeah. So at this point, you have now been warned.
Well, go ahead, Sean. Start.
I was not spoiled. I was loving it from the get-go. We had a very, aliens kind of sense that we're going in, and we've got this Marine squad and a desolate planet and some sort of miners, prospectors, colonists. Something bad has happened, and they lost contact, and then we find one sole survivor, and everybody else is horrifically dead. Not just dead, but either strangled or shot. It's like, ooh, okay. And then the plot thickened, as they say. I'm trying to decide, once the reveal comes, and I was right there. I was like right before the Doctor figured it out. I had a ooh moment, and Mel was like, "What?" And I had to pause it. I was like, "Oh, I think they're on this planet. I think it's the one from that episode with," and she did not remember. I was like, the one with the Doctor was scared, and David Tennant, and they were doing it, and she goes, No. I was like, oh, well, you'd know it if you saw it. So we hit play and continued in the episode, and was literally, 5 seconds later that the Doctor goes, and they do the flashback scene. And Mel goes, "Oh,
That was
I
enough.
remember
That
one.
was enough to make it click. Huh?
That face. I remember her." I was like, "Yeah, that one." So now we're all ready to go back for a rewatch of that episode. But I'm trying to decide if I give, first of all, full props for doing this and doing it in a way that, at least until the New York Times blew it out of the water, that we didn't know necessarily what was up.
Right.
And then full props for keeping that level of tension. I don't think this episode's as scary.
Agreed.
Right.
But it certainly was up there in the pantheon of, I am legit creeped out during this. And it's got me on the edge of my seat, and I am, yikes. And then once it was over, I was both elated and a little let down because the MO felt different, and obviously it had to. You cannot do a sequel to that story in the same manner as that story.
Right.
It wouldn't work. So you have to change it, and changing the monster in this way worked terribly well, and it was super effective and super creepy. But I also feel like, in a way, by trying to explain it for this episode, that maybe we lost a little something from the original, if that makes sense. Like, in context, we've now established a little more about this thing that I didn't necessarily need. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can kind of see that, but I don't feel like I learned that much more about it other than that it has learned and grown. Like,
and
I
that's true.
still don't know, like, really in its origin, or other than it's from this planet and it's always been here. I mean, I don't think I walked away going, "Oh, I get that character now. I know why that bad guy is the way he is." It's still just such a menacing, unfathomable threat that you can't really see, that's evolving and growing. And I think one of the smartest things they did was setting it so much further in the future to give that entity time to grow and evolve and have that evolution, so they wouldn't have to stick with the same MO.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything you just said.
I must be the only one in the world that eventually I want to know the mystery behind, like, for so many years, people said, "Oh, I liked Boba Fett when he was so much more of a mystery." Well, sure, early on that was great, but as the character develops, you want to learn more about them. You want to learn about their past, their future, their family, their history, their lineage. You just want that kind. I kind of just want that. I don't want that complete mysterious stranger. And then people do the same thing with Doctor Who. Is I know that the mystery is the allure of the character, but your characters become very stagnant if you just continue to have this dark mystery hanging around them. So in this situation, it's the same way. I kind of wanted to learn more about the being. I wanted to know where it was from, and why it's particularly on this planet, and why was it deserted here, or did it belong here, or did it? I wanted much more than. I mean, it did not degrade the episode for me at all, because I still loved it. I thought it was a wonderful episode. I thought it was very intense. I'm with you, Sean. I don't know if it was as scary as Midnight, but I loved it. But I wanted to know more about this thing. For me, a mystery is a mystery until it's solved, and I think every mystery has to be solved. But that's just me.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of truth to that, but I think we've, specifically with Doctor Who, we've kind of run the table of, okay, the Weeping Angels, what a great villain, and then we did a sequel and found out more about them, and it's very much a sequence of diminishing returns.
But that's in the storytelling, because if you've got a really good story, then I know what you mean. I think sometimes it does diminish the character when you learn something, but sometimes sometimes that's at the fault of the writer, is they just didn't quite, get it. They didn't quite Maybe that's another thing, is maybe mystery sets people up for expectations that are higher than what can be delivered upon sometimes. And that's why I kind of put my expectations of things in check so that I'm not disappointed when it doesn't go the way I presume it should.
Yeah, it's a very fine line to walk, because if you develop this mystery monster, you give us absolutely nothing about its MO or how it works or why it works the way it does, then we're left with a bunch of questions, and we're probably pissed off. We're probably, very dissatisfied with the experience because we didn't know anything. Midnight is one of those rare exceptions where I don't really feel like we learn a whole lot about it other than what's presented within the episode itself. And it's more an exercise in terror that, oh, this is bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Doctor is legit afraid of this thing and how it's learning and evolving right there on the spot. And then it becomes an exercise in get out now. We'll worry about it later. What was that thing? It doesn't matter. We have to escape from it. With this, I mean, and even, I mean, when you look at the Doctor himself over themselves as over the timeline of the show as it's progressed, we've learned more and more and more and more to the point where it didn't feel like there was a whole lot of mystery left. And I don't want to say the character got stale, but the character got very relatable. The character got very familiar. The character got very standard. Very, this is what we're going to get. This is a Doctor Who episode. And so then various people have come in to try and, regain that sense of mystery with, various degrees of success and various methods. And, some of those work and some of them don't. So there certainly has to be a peeling of layer. You've got to get more off the onion with some of these ideas in order to get them to work. But sometimes you run the risk of, ta-da, look at this thing I did, and now it's not a cool idea anymore. It's just kind of okay, you explain the thing, and then we move on. So this one, I think, also did a very good job of not peeling too much. And as you said, Keith, that this thing has evolved, over these years. But it was almost too much. I feel like we didn't cross the line. We didn't cross the line. But then the very ending of the episode, while I'm the biggest hypocrite, I will freely admit that, because there's a part of me that's like, it got out. It escaped the hole. It's in the thing, and that means we're gonna get another one. And there's another part of me that wants no business seeing another one. I don't want a third part to this story in a way, because, well, where do you go from here? I mean, do you give it another 400,000 years and then come back to it? Or, I mean, that's the beauty of Doctor Who. It's time travel. You can do whatever you want. But I don't know. I'm super torn on that, because I never thought we'd go back to Midnight at all.
I never thought we would either.
I mean, it was such a great one-off, But, as with all Doctor Who monsters, I guess you're going to get another one eventually. So,
well, and I think one of the things that they did really smartly, while I think we do learn, probably if we went back and made a list, we'd find out we learned a lot more about it than we realized. But it doesn't feel like we do, because we never get to see the creature. And I think that's the one mystery that everybody probably wants out of Midnight more than anything, is to see what this creature looks like. And we never truly get to do that. And I think that was a smart thing on their part.
Yeah, I don't want to see it. This is less is more.
I think the glimpse of what we saw of it, because the Doctor looks back to see it, and the shadowy glimpse that we got of it, I think, was enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it almost, even that, it almost feels like that shadowy glimpse isn't like its true self.
Yeah.
It's more of it, or it's like original self. It's more of its evolving to get out of the planet. So it's becoming humanoid, even though it doesn't really have that form to it.
Yeah.
At least that's kind of the headcanon I took away from it.
Yeah, very possibly, because, that tantalizing over the shoulder, what is that thing? That's perfect. That's all I want. I don't want more, because we were jumping at everything. We were like, what is it? Is it one of those beetles that Donna had on her back in that one episode? Is it it could, maybe it's one of these. Oh, I bet it could be I mean, we went the whole gambit of villains known and unknown. Didn't get to midnight though.
Well, it's funny that you went with the episode that follows directly after midnight, which is Turn Left. That's the one with the beetle. The thing,
isn't it though? Yeah, I was such a impressive. I hesitate to say high watermark, because realistically, all of the episodes so far have been just solid and so well done. But I would count this among the betters. I'm so very impressed with the season so far.
Yeah.
I also really liked Alice in the story of, how they incorporated her deafness in, of why she was able to resist the entity from kind of taking over things, and how that was incorporated, and how that her fear throughout the entire thing and her trying to keep the secret of what's going on, I thought was just really well executed and really well acted as well.
Yeah.
It was really nice to have that and have it built and kind of baked into the episode. So not that it's wrong to have a person with disabilities in an episode. Totally cool with that. That we need more representation, and that's, if there had been no reason for her character to be deaf or for that to tie into the plot, okay, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
But managing to find a way to work it in there, that again, me, I like a little science in my science fiction there. That was the rationale for it, was just chef's kiss. It was just the icing on the cake, really.
And I think even with her keeping the secret from them, you feel like you should be mad at her, but you still have a lot of sympathy because of the situation she's in. And she understands, she understands that being the last person here, if there's a chance she'll never be able to go see her. It was her daughter, I think, that she was trying to get back to her. And so you really have a lot of sympathy for the character, for, even though she was putting them in danger and could have unleashed this thing, on the universe. You have a lot of sympathy for her because you think she's in desperation mode now. So
the moments where it looked like they were going to leave her, like that was the option, is that we take off and she stays here.
Well,
oh, just ripped my heart out.
Well, and even when they turned their back on her to talk, and her reaction to that, and the begging of "don't turn your back on me," was ripped my heart out too.
So many good episodes in this one, or good moments in this episode.
My family enjoyed it as well, but Holly did make a good point there. And now we're so far out, I can't remember how the mechanics of it worked, but there was at one point where when it attached itself to the leader girl and she turned and ran, Holly had a problem with why she was able to turn her back and not affect anybody behind her. And
I wondered about that myself.
I kind of thought, okay, maybe that's a bit of a plot hole there. Not enough to to ruin the episode or anything, but I was kind of with her after. I didn't think anything of it until she brought it up, and then I thought, yeah, that didn't really quite work, did it? She should have backed out of the room or something.
Doesn't the twist at the end kind of explain that away, of the fact that it didn't attach to her, it attached to Val instead?
Yeah, I suppose that's true. I guess that's true because that actually does solve that. That's not a plot hole anymore if that's the way that it did escape. So,
yeah, you're totally right, Keith. I hadn't thought of it that way.
I hadn't thought of it either.
But now that you say
watching it, you think that, and then and then you see the reveal of, it still exists.
It wasn't on her.
Right.
She sacrificed herself for nothing.
Yeah.
Well, see, now in many ways that almost makes it worse, because the threat of the thing being on the loose was one thing. But if it wasn't attached to the captain who threw herself down the well, and we get this scene on the spaceship of, it's actually on you, and now we have this quasi-confirmation of it wasn't on the captain because she was able to run away, that means it did get out. 100%. It's not something that's in debate now.
Right. But overall, incredible episode. Just really, the ratcheting up the tension of that episode was just really well done.
Since we don't get any of her in the next episode, what do you guys think of Belinda so far? At least throughout this one.
I think she's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think she's just an amazing character, and for somebody who is so desperate to go home, I just want to go home, and keeps being thrust into these kinds of situations, and her humanity never gets overpowered. Her maybe it's her nursing compassion that no, I'm going to help. She keeps winding up helping, which is fantastic, and that's what you want in a companion. But it just, she's not in it for the adventure. She's in it because we haven't gotten home yet. So making the best of the bad situation. Okay, but she resigns herself to helping, but it's not resignation. It's because it's the right thing to do, and it's so wonderful.
All right, well, let's move on to Lucky Day.
Ruby Sunday faces life back on Earth without the Doctor, but when a dangerous new threat emerges, can Ruby and Unit save her new boyfriend Conrad from the terrifying Shriek?
Bum, bum, bum.
Worst synopsis ever.
Yeah.
Well, I can't reveal too much.
I know you're absolutely right. I mean,
So reminders, now that the episode has aired,
we're going to talk spoilers and how horrible Conrad was.
This was two
God,
episodes.
he was horrible.
This was 2 episodes back to back that really did have kind of just a complete twist on them.
Yeah.
Keith,
Then you should go.
No, you go ahead because I want to see. I'm not a fan. I didn't like this one. I didn't like Lucky Day. I kind of felt that it was going down. I'm kind of glad that it got away from this, but I kind of felt like it was going down the road of, which one of the things we didn't like about Clara was the fact that she got a little bit too into herself and tried to be a little too Doctor-like. And I kind of felt like this was going that way too. And I like when a companion travels with the Doctor and then it changes them as a person and they're able to deal with situations in a different way than perhaps they did. They've kind of grown as a person. They are more of a take charge or at least handle a situation differently than maybe they did before they met the Doctor. But I kind of felt like she was getting a little too... I mean, she didn't even travel with the Doctor that long. And I kind of felt like she was getting too much like Clara did. And then Clara, she obviously reap the consequences of that. But so they were going that way, and I thought, okay, well, this is dangerously close to being, Ruby trying to be the Doctor. And then I had a lot of sympathy for this guy, but I kept thinking he's kind of an idiot. he really wasn't being safe. And then it all kind of made sense when it's revealed. But at the point that it's revealed, then I thought, okay, this might be kind of clever. But as they go, they continue to push this really just jerk of a guy that is looking for either, content views, or he's looking at, or he just absolutely is one of those guys that can't, I don't know. There's too many of those type of guys in the world today that I didn't want a whole Doctor Who episode around it. I guess maybe that's where I land on this. There are so many of these deniers, and I think that that's what the message of this was. But I think this is one of those. I don't mind messages in Doctor Who. I never have. I don't mind I don't mind Doctor Who turning the mirror around to society and showing people kind of, this is a reflection of reality. But in this one, it just felt like that it was, I don't want to say heavy-handed or ham-fisted, but it really felt like it just drove it too far. And then not having the Doctor in this was just, I really enjoyed Unit. I thought Kate made some decisions that I thought were questionable, but I also think that in the long run, she probably had no choice but to handle the situation the way she did. But there was just something about this. There was too much of this guy, either whether he's doing it intentionally to bait them because he, I guess he had a grudge against Unit because they wouldn't hire him for one thing, but he's also trying to expose this, paramilitary, saying that all these things that they find are fake and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know whether he really believes that that's the case, although I don't think he does. But then he just felt like he kept pushing too far. And I just didn't like that.
The problem with it is they never truly give us good motivation for why he's doing what he's doing.
There you go. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Ruby theorizes as to why.
Yeah.
But even what she theorizes doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It just is like, why did he feel that way? It's not really like the doctor didn't, was only nice to him when he did run into him. And then obviously everything after that was him just trying to get back to get vengeance on some. It just a lot of the motivation behind the character doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, it also feels like a episode of a spin-off dropped in the middle of the season out of nowhere, and more accurately, a backdoor pilot
for a Unit show.
Yes, because Pete McGinty, who wrote it, is the showrunner for the War Against Land and Sea.
Oh, there you go.
So that's what this.
Right. Maybe that's
what
it
this
is.
whole episode is basically becoming a backdoor pilot.
Yeah.
It's you're both there. In that, yes, this was very heavy-handed with the hey, look at society now, and yes, his motivations were incredibly weak. It's all key hinging upon the chance encounter that he had with the doctor at the very beginning of the episode, and that he sees this wonderful, miraculous thing, and even gets money out of it. And he runs to tell his mom, and his mom berates him and gives him the Superman slap of, haven't I told you about telling lies? And you're ruining my day. And she turns around to go back to this guy who's obviously not dad. He's the boyfriend of the week is kind of the impression that I got. And it's New Year's and we're drinking and celebrating and ignoring our kid. So in that snapshot, you kind of get a picture of Conrad's life up to this point, that he's been ignored, that his mom doesn't give two squats about him, that there's a series of unstable father figures in his life. And yes, I'm reading way into this. But the one thing that he thinks is, wow, look at this, is dismissed and put down immediately. And so it becomes kind of the catalyst of everything in his life is down and not wonderful, and fuels that anger and resentment, and going to get back at it, and I'm going to go work for Unit, and then they don't hire me, and this. Well, now I'm going to date this chick, and I'm purposely not going to douse myself with this drug that will make me impervious to these things because I don't believe in them, even though he has firsthand experience. He saw the TARDIS.
Yeah, and he saw the shriek as well, and that's my problem. Is I think you're absolutely right in the way that they were setting this up in order to give him motivation to be the character that he turns out to be later. But if it hadn't been that encounter in between that time and later or now, then I wouldn't have had as much of a problem, because you're the way you're painting it, you're absolutely right. It's his life basically brought him to the person that he was. But because there was that middle part where he gets spewed with the gunk from the shriek, and then he does see the TARDIS, and he sees the doctor fix things and then dematerialize and go away. That should have been enough to for me to have changed his course of life from the way you're describing.
Right. And I think maybe the way this should have gone is a continued series of encounters with the Doctor. But every time, and it's innocuous, the Doctor doesn't recognize this kid. The Doctor doesn't interact with this kid. The Doctor just happens to be there. And then something bad happens to Conrad. So every time the TARDIS shows up, Conrad would associate this with bad. Oh, there was an alien attack, and Mom died on the way to work. Let's go full blown with it. Okay, this happened, and I lost my job because the building got blown up by Daleks. Just that kind of thing. Where if it was one after another, after another, after another, then I could understand this deep seated revenge motif that he had going on. But instead, he comes across, and I'm going to say it, he comes across like a vaccine denier, where I know they work, but I'm just so angry about it, I'm going to refuse to believe anything you put in front of me, even though I saw it with my own eyes.
Yeah.
It's that level of, oh, come on. Which then also plays into the, as the Doctor says, you're using up our bandwidth, and we're just so very tired of how loud you are. Never. And Glenn, I have to ask. So it's not ham-fisted, but the very heavy-handed nature of this, as you alluded to, is it maybe because we're just getting a little tired of that mirror being spun around?
No.
Because we're dealing with so much of it in actual society.
Well, yeah, maybe so.
Because it is totally a comment. It's definitely a commentary on deniers and all of that on social media.
And also, I think maybe we don't have a problem with it before because we hope that the result will be change. But we've gone so far recently that it's like, what's the point? you're everything that you're, turning that mirror around isn't seem to be doing any good. So now it's obvious when you're, I don't know. It just, it could be, it very well could be.
Maybe just a little kids, preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Well, and to give credit to the script, I'm sure it was written when it was the beginning of a lot of this, or kind of reaching the peak, and not we're still dealing with it 2 years later. I mean, they filmed these how long ago?
I also sort of this maybe plays into what you're talking about too, Sean, but I almost sort of wonder if maybe I feel like, why are we even bothering with, like you said, preach to the choir? Why are we even bothering with this when the people that are sticking around watching this show are watching it because they're enjoying it? The people that they're trying to reach that message with, they're either hate watching it or they're not watching it at all anymore. And what's the point? I mean, what's the point of delivering that kind of message? I don't know. Maybe they feel like they'll reach somebody.
Now, I did enjoy Unit. I enjoyed all of the Unit stuff. So if this is, in fact, a backdoor pilot to a Unit TV show, yep, I'm on board with that. Give me more of this TV show.
I even liked... Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to jump slightly subjects, so go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I just... everything about this iteration of Unit, and I even commented to Mel, it's like, I am so glad that RTD brought Unit back into the fold and just kind of said, yeah, it's a thing. We're going to keep him around, and we're going to, because I like a Doctor Who universe with my Unit in it. It's just a little more... There's a couple more shades on the palette wheel that you can play with in your storytelling when Unit's a thing. And I feel like removing them from the mix is... because now, if you need a friendly military force, you need to invent one. And if you need an antagonistic military force, you need to invent one. And it's like, Unit can just check a lot of those boxes for you, depending on what the story needs. So,
right.
That's a great thing.
This was another one that my family enjoyed, and they said, in fact, I think it was Robin said, they could just do a whole spin-off of Unit and I'd be fine with that. I said, well,
Good
since
news.
you
You're in
mentioned
luck.
Although
I
then when I said it had to do with the Sea Devils, they both went, "Oh." I said, "Well, you didn't get a good representation of the Sea Devils recently."
Which I
No.
think that was, I got the impression that's what they were referencing where Mel was.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. I also liked the Shriek. I'm not going to lie. There was a part of me that was kind of hoping it was a Weevil.
It kind of has a Torchwood-esque feel to it.
It does, doesn't it? It was like, oh, is this the new recurring? Yeah, we just need something to come lurk in a lurk in an alleyway somewhere. Yes, bring back the. I was. Well, okay, it's a new one. All right,
Well,
sure.
maybe it's kind of like the Sea Devils and the Solarians. Maybe they're like cousins.
They're cousins.
They're
Yeah.
cousins. But I enjoyed that, and I liked. Surprisingly, as you had said, Ruby, I don't know that she equated herself terribly well in this episode. But having said that, we got to remember she's 19, 20. I mean, she's still really, really young at this point.
Yeah.
And she did well enough to know what she needed to do and knew well enough that, in the instance where they're at the bar or the pub, pardon me, and, there's something that's tracked him up here. Okay, I'll go take care of it. And she does it reluctantly. She does it, not really wanting to go outside, but worried about the innocence more. That's where her doctor-like attitude is from, is, trying to contain it and not let those people get hurt. And at least she's the one that has some experience with it.
Yeah.
But once we get outside of that environment, she also knows enough to go to Unit for help. And,
Instead of trying to take care of it herself.
and not take
like
care of
some
it
companions
herself.
would have.
Right.
Well,
And so I really appreciated the fact that Kate is kind of now become this adoptive mother, which they even referenced.
yeah, she's like her
How many
third
moms
one.
do you
Yeah.
need?
So
But I would like to see more of Kate dealing with these wayward cast-off companions after
Yeah.
the fact,
yeah.
and kind of fulfilling that role of Mama Hen.
And I also like
to be
the exploration of the PTSD of what she's experienced as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
That I think is a nice thing that we've not nice, but an aspect that we've not explored. And I think we could have explored it even more with Ruby in this story. But it's something that we've not explored in the past with previous companions. And I like that. I think it's an interesting angle to take with it.
To be fair to Ruby, she did contact Kate initially, and she was double checking to make sure it was still there. And then through their conversation, they all but talked her out of the fact that she was talked her into the fact she was being overcautious, and there was probably nothing really to worry about. And so I think that you have to give her credit because she did reach out at least twice, when they were there. So she wasn't trying to handle all of this herself. She almost is handling until the cavalry arrives, so.
And, speaking of the PTSD, this is, you want to, RTD, call me. I will be your new spinoff. Okay? I will be the companion that got dumped. And I will be the nerdy narcissist one who does have Unit on speed dial and continually calls them because my mailman looked at me funny. Or I think my trash can might have burped. Can you send guys down here to check for autons? I will totally play that character for you, and we'll do 5 seasons and a movie, and it'll be great. Right? You guys would watch that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
See? That's 2.
Till they canceled it mid-season.
Boy, aren't you a little black rain?
But not
You
based
doubt
on
my
your
ability?
not based on your performance, just based on the fact that you really can't sustain that story very long.
You doubt my abilities?
It's not the acting, it's the writing.
That's right.
As long as we don't hire Chibners, I think we'll be okay.
I think that's what it comes down to. I think, Keith, you hit the nail on the head, at least for why I was upset or disappointed with the episode. And I think it comes down to I just don't feel like they developed enough motivation for the character in order to be that way.
It's really, I think the episode's failing. And I think had they given him a good motivation, I think the episode would have been better. And I also find it interesting, while they took a stance against deniers and everything, but they also wound up taking a pro-government stance, which in today's society, I don't know how positively that's looked on.
Yeah.
It was just
Although
I agree with their stances. So
the politics of that being written, though, is that's from a UK perspective.
Version, yeah.
So they're not as disillusioned with their government as maybe Americans are.
Although they're impeaching people all the time, or whatever they call it. They seem to be always turning over prime ministers.
Well, that's because their system works different than ours.
Yeah.
And besides, don't you think she looks tired?
Well, anything else about either of these two particular stories before we wrap things up?
It was good, but it wasn't as good.
I'll tell you, even with this one being kind of my least favorite, I still think the season so far is going strong. And, and that's not even to hint to what's ahead, because we've obviously, as we record this, we have already seen the next one, but we're saving that for the next episode. But I think this season still feels like it's stronger than it was last season. And last season had its its highs and its lows, but this one I feel like they're doing a lot better at keeping consistency in the stories and consistency on how well these stories tell a cohesive story as well.
Yeah, that's definitely the key word. Is there were highs and lows last season, and this season has been very consistent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, we didn't have a whole lot of contention, but I guess there was at least this week we didn't all go, "Yep, it was good." All right. Well, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.